Partner utters a phrase that triggers a sudden internal blackout. Instead of engaging or defending your position, your vocal cords tighten and your world goes silent. Swallow. If you want to understand why your brain forces you into this sudden retreat, subscribe here today. This mechanism is not an act of immaturity or a choice made during the peak of emotional frustration. Silence is a sophisticated biological circuit triggered when the brain perceives an existential threat. When you shut down, your nervous system is actually executing a survival protocol inherited from predators. The sudden, crisp snap of a twig underfoot. You are not choosing to ignore the conversation occurring in front of you at that specific moment. Your prefrontal cortex is taking a backseat to the ancient structures of your brain that prioritize safety. This shift in neural dominance occurs before you can even consciously label the emotion you feel. The fight-or-flight response we learn about in textbooks is actually incomplete and often inaccurate. But don't worry, we're here to break down the true biology for you. Researchers have identified a third primary stress response that remains widely misunderstood by the public. This third state is the immobilization response, which effectively acts as a physiological circuit breaker. Hi there! We're introducing a new feature where I can read this aloud in a natural, human-like voice. Your body is essentially a collection of nested biological systems designed to maintain internal balance. The ventral vagal complex is the part of your brain that facilitates social engagement and calm connection. When someone yells, your nervous system first attempts to de-escalate the situation through this social system, the jarring, echoey sound of a sudden loud shout. If the yelling continues, your brain determines that social connection will not neutralize the current threat. It then activates the sympathetic nervous system, which prepares your body for the classic fight or flight. Your heart rate increases and your blood pressure rises as you prepare to physically confront the danger. Yet in a modern argument, physically fighting your partner or running out the door is rarely acceptable. You never listen to me. Why are you doing this again? Your brain perceives this inability to act as a trap that creates a massive feedback loop of stress. The sympathetic system hits a limit where it can no longer sustain the high energy required for defense. The final and most primitive system in this hierarchy is the dorsal vagal complex, which causes shutdown. This system is the evolutionary equivalent of a lizard playing dead to survive a predatory encounter. Your body slows everything down to save energy and protect your vital organs from the perceived attack. You go quiet because your physical ability to respond effectively has been chemically revoked by the brain. This explains the feeling of being physically frozen, even when you are mentally screaming to speak out. The connection between your vocal cords and your middle ear muscles begins to weaken in this state. We're introducing a new feature. You literally struggle to process the sound of the other person's voice as they continue to pressure you. Why aren't you listening? I'm telling you exactly what to do. Focus. Your brain is trying to filter out the noise of the threat to focus on pure physical internal stability. The silence is the physical manifestation of your body deciding that isolation is safer than engagement. You are experiencing what scientists call a functional disconnect between thought and physical expression. This has nothing to do with the specific topic of the argument being debated at the dinner table. It has everything to do with how your biology interprets the volume and intensity of the vocal input. The person you are arguing with could be talking about laundry, or they could be talking about betrayal. Your nervous system does not differentiate between a social threat and a predator in the tall grass. This disconnect is the precise moment when communication between two people effectively ceases to exist. You perceive the other person not as a partner, but as a source of dysregulation for your system. They perceive your silence as cold indifference, or a deliberate tactic of emotional manipulation. The irony is that your silence is actually a desperate attempt to regulate your own rising panic. You are not withholding communication to punish them. You are withholding it to save yourself. This creates a tragic cycle where the more they push, the more your system demands total lockdown. The more you lock down, the more they feel the need to push to get any reaction at all. The more you lock down, the more they feel the need to push to get any reaction at all. Each attempt they make to bridge the gap only serves to trigger the defensive reflex again. It is a biological tug-of-war, where both parties are responding to their own internal survival cues. Your brain is not trying to be difficult. It is trying to keep you from having a mental collapse. During this time, your ability to empathize or understand the other perspective is completely offline. Your capacity for complex cognitive processing is restricted by the need to manage physiological distress. Many people mistakenly call this the silent treatment, but it is an involuntary physiological freeze. The silent treatment implies a calculated strategic choice made to exert control over another person. In reality, this freeze state involves a complete loss of control over one's own behavioral output. Hi there, we're introducing a new feature where I can read this aloud in a natural, human-like voice. The shame that follows these arguments is often harder to process than the argument itself. You judge yourself for not standing your ground when the other person was clearly being unfair. You label yourself as weak or submissive because you did not voice your side of the story. This self-judgment only serves to further dysregulate your nervous system for the next encounter. You are training your brain to fear your own reactions to conflict rather than understanding them. Recognizing this pattern is the first step toward reclaiming your ability to remain online. You must learn to identify the physical signs of the dorsal vagal shift before it hits you. Look for the tightening in your chest or the sudden feeling of heaviness in your limbs. Pay attention to when the sound of the other person begins to feel distant or distorted. These are the early warning signals of your survival system preparing to pull the plug. If you can notice these signs, you can pause the conversation before the shutdown is total. Simply stating that you need a 10-minute break allows your system to begin regulating again. This is not walking away from the problem. It is a necessary physiological recalibration period. You are not avoiding the conflict, then you are preparing to handle it in a state of safety. When your ventral vagal system is active, you can listen without feeling physically attacked. You can process information and offer responses that are actually aligned with your values. This transition from reactive biology to conscious choice is the core of emotional maturity. You are rewriting the script that your nervous system uses when it encounters high intensity. It requires practice because your brain has spent years perfecting the shutdown reflex. You are effectively teaching your nervous system that it is safe to stay open during tension. This does not mean you will never feel the urge to shut down ever again in your life. It means you will have the agency to recognize the urge and choose a different pathway. You are moving from a state of primitive reaction to one of social engagement and clarity. This is how you stop the cycle of silence and start the cycle of genuine mutual understanding. The goal is to keep your social engagement system online even when the intensity spikes. This is the definition of psychological resilience in the face of interpersonal relational conflict. It allows you to protect your boundaries without sacrificing your connection to the other person. You stop seeing the other person as the predator and start seeing them as a person in distress. The entire dynamic of your relationships shifts when you are no longer operating in survival mode. You become a stabilizing force in the argument instead of an escalating factor in the tension. This approach requires vulnerability because you are intentionally staying with the discomfort. Staying open while your body screams for you to hide is a massive act of courage. It is the only way to genuinely break the feedback loop that has defined your conflicts. The survival wiring you once relied on is now limiting your ability to connect with others. You are acknowledging the history of your system while choosing to upgrade its current operations. This work is not easy, but it is the most rewarding development you can undertake today. Every time you stay open during a small conflict, you make the next time exponentially easier. You are changing the physical architecture of how your brain processes emotional information. The deep structural and If you are ready to master your own biology and stop letting your system control you, subscribe now. If you are ready to master your own biology and stop letting your system control you, subscribe now. We explore the science of why we do what we do so you can finally lead your own life. Hi there! We're introducing a new feature